Start
This
the
meeting is
recording.
being recorded.
Perfect.
And start. Go live.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live track, the data value creation loop, an engineering perspective on data flywheels and supply chain with our guest, Trent McConaghy. Hi, Trent. It's a pleasure to have you here again at TE Academy, and thanks for being open to share your knowledge.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Sorry. My pleasure.
Thank you. Just in case you're watching the stream via Twitter or YouTube and you haven't heard about the study season is a cohort-based program at TE Academy where we host advanced token engineering knowledge learning sessions with seasoned token engineers, crypto economic researchers, token engineering practitioners. You can take part, you can register at tokenengineering.net. Registrations are still open. We just started the sessions. They will run throughout July, where we meet with the community of token engineers at EFCC in Brussels, July 10. Mark your calendars. This is the study season, and one of these tracks, as we call it, is Trent's session today. He'll talk about the data value creation loop, the famous token engineering flywheel, how to make token economy sustain. There's a lot to gain here, particularly from Trent's experience, years of developing the token model for Ocean Protocol. And without further ado, the stage is yours, Trent. Happy to have you here today.
Hello. Yes, it's really a pleasure to be here. And as always, today I will be talking about experiences in using token engineering for a specific problem with an Ocean protocol. And I'll go from there, I guess. So maybe I'll just jump right into the talk. And I'm going to just have to share my screen here. Give me a sec. So video. It's been a while since I used Zoom to share a screen, actually, so bear with me. I'll say hello too with my video here. So hello, everyone. Here's me. My background is actually blurry. It's blurry for me here too. No, joking. So let's see here. Video. Doesn't look.
Yeah, you should be able to share screen just in the lower section of your Zoom window. Share screen in green.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. Thank you very much. And it works. Sometimes there's settings, so great. And I will show a specific window. Oh, here we go. Okay. Okay, let's just do this. Okay.
Perfect.
And great. And with that, I will go here and go to slideshow. Okay, you guys see this?
Yes, we can see it.
Excellent. So let's get started. Yes, I'm going to talk about the data value creation loop from an engineering perspective, token engineering perspective. It's to do with data flywheels and supply chains and actually making money, which is a very nice optimization thing to optimize for. Can you make your community help your community make money? It really helps usage. So that's kind of what we focused on here. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to introduce the problem. So maybe by background, right? As Angela mentioned, I'm with Ocean Protocol, and we've been working at Ocean Protocol, building it, envisioning it, building it, etc., since 2017. With each passing year, we are building different things, rolling out different products, trying some, deleting some products that don't work, and doubling down on the products that do work. So we do keep trying to have a very rapid iteration process with what we roll out. We've always had a strong engineering component to what we do, and including token engineering, which you guys all are well aware of. So, and with that, I'll just jump into that then. So, with Ocean Protocol, the general idea is to level the playing field for AI and data. And our focus has been data because data is one of the big bottlenecks for building really great AI models. So can we level the playing field for that? such that it helps to level the playing field for AI. And so here's an example, just a picture from Ocean Docks of the ocean stack. There's a lot going on. I'm not asking you to understand it. I'm not going to explain it. I just want to point out that we've built a lot of stuff over the years. This is everything from smart contracts at the lowest level, for data NFTs, data tokens, middleware libraries in Python and JavaScript, templates to build for people to build web apps. And then we also roll out some of our own apps as Ocean Protocol, including Ocean Market. And today I will be talking a bit about Ocean Predictor towards the end as well. So we built the stack. And actually, from what we have built and rolled out over the years and refined and so on, we have quite a lot of users. Here are some of the highlights. Eccentric is part of Daimler, the company that owns Mercedes-Benz and other brands. And they have, we've been collaborating with them for several years, and they have built and rolled out a data marketplace called Eccentric, and that's sort of a sub-brand of Daimler. And it's a fork of the Ocean Market. It uses Ocean technology for decentralized data sharing, which comes down to decentralized access control, plus a lot of goodies to reduce the friction around that for data sharing and so on. Brainstem Health, it's a neuroscience startup. Data Latte, DeSites AI, which is like a decentralized version of Kaggle, data science competitions. Felt Labs, that's decentralized federated learning. And more of the next two are Gaia X projects, actually from worked on by Delta DAO, another strong team in the Ocean ecosystem. And there's many more teams besides that. The bottom right zooms in on a few more. Okay, so lots of things getting built. We found though that some of the teams were struggling, especially the younger, more junior teams. It's already quite a struggle to just do stuff with this open data economy, this decentralized data economy that Ocean is trying to build, and spending all the time on the tech and stuff, and the product, right? But if you focus on that too much, how about making money and stuff? How about getting sustainable? And of course, any given startup, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit company, needs to be sustainable, right? And ideally, it's not just barely getting by. Ideally, it's not barely sustainable. Ideally, it's doing well with respect to cash flow and income, such that it can keep growing, ideally exponentially, right? So how can teams not only sustain but thrive in this open data economy? And that's questions we've asked ourselves over the years, but really started asking that in earnest about 2 years ago. So let's talk about a solution. And at first, these first few slides are going to seem very simplistic, but don't worry, I'll get into a lot more detail too. So as a first cut, right, you need to make sure that with these tools for data sharing and other tools that we have, make sure there are affordances for the teams to monetize selling data, running data marketplaces, and so on. Make sure we have really good flexibility on gathering fees. So these 2 bullet points was actually our V3 and V4 features in those, and more stuff too, right? There's a lot of things, improved UX, blah, blah, blah. These are all needed, right? And they've been built and they're being used. You've seen examples before, and some of those projects I gave before are making pretty good money. But in general, that's not enough, right? Just because you can take payments doesn't mean that the payments are actually coming in, right? It doesn't mean that the money's coming in. So that leads to the next question, which is ensure that they can make money, right? Not just take in the money, but like end to end have a product that people want, right? Paul Graham, the famous founder of Y Combinator, says simply, build something people want. And that's actually one of my favorite quotes of all time, because it sounds so simple that it's almost glib and an oversimplification, but it's not, right? If you're not building something people want, then you're kind of dead in the water as a project or as a startup. And you can even zoom in on that, right? So make sure you're building something people want. But then beyond that, the teams that are building something people want, can they make money and thrive, right? So whatever you're doing as a team, can you make money? And we're asking this, we've been asking this internally on behalf of the teams in our ecosystem that are already out there, but any future teams too. Can these teams make money? And of course, that's also very simple sounding. So let's drill in. How can they make money, right? This is targeting towards an open data economy, right? Ocean tools, et cetera, in our case. So, and this is where we, drill in and start to add some fidelity. So they need to basically find a way to create value from data, right? So, and then once you've created value from that, make money from it, right? Extract turn that value into actual dollars. And then once you've got those dollars, reinvest it into future growth, right? So it's actually a loop, right? One, two, three, boom, boom, boom. And rather than just, talking about this loop, saying it's a loop and having a tiny little loop, let's zoom in on this from a data perspective. And if there's one slide that I want you to take away from this whole presentation, it's this one. This is at the heart of it, what I'm talking about. We call it the data value creation loop. So at the very top, you are getting training data, and this is maybe from scraping the web, maybe from buying data, maybe from reading APIs, or otherwise, right? Maybe reading graph style APIs, SQL queries, whatever. So you get your training data. You've had to spend some money, at least in engineering resources, maybe buying the data otherwise. And then you build a model from that data, right? And within that, you've got data cleaning, you've got the feature vectors, and then experimenting with different models at first too. But you build that model, and what does the model do? Well, it makes predictions, right? So that's on the bottom part. So the model makes predictions, and those predictions give you insights such that you can take action to make money, whatever that is, right? And given that I'll talk about this more later, a very simple example is with DeFi trading. So let's say you're a data scientist that wants to do DeFi trading. Maybe you get some training data on Binance historical data for, say, Bitcoin USDT price. And then you build a model that predicts the price 5 minutes from now of what Bitcoin USDT will be. And let's say it's accurate, 52, 55% accurate, which is enough to make money. So then when it predicts, if it predicts up, what's the action you take? You buy. If it predicts down, you sell. And then 5 minutes later, you exit your position, right? And that very simple strategy can actually make money. As long as your accuracy is high enough, 52, 55%, greater than 50%, but also overcoming trading fees, right? And any slippage that you might incur. So, and slippage and trading fees are sort of flip sides of the same coin in a sense. They're basically costs of doing trading. Okay, so that's a very simple example, but once you make money from the trading, the key thing is you loop it back. You take the money you've earned and you put that into, buying more data and then building a model, making a better model, predicting again, using those predictions to trade, to make money, and then with the money, buying more data, loop, 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 right? So this is the idea of the data value creation loop. And it's not just for trading, of course, it's for anything. And I'm going to get into that. Okay, so a key thing here is that there is data at each step of the loop. So often when we talk about data, people immediately assume that it's only about training data, right? But once you take that training data, to build that model, you take the raw training data, you clean it. Now you've got cleaned training data. That's also data. Then you often construct feature vectors depending on the AI modeling technique. That's data. And then you train the model. And the model itself is typically some algorithm, maybe a particular neural network or a linear model or otherwise, plus the parameters for that algorithm/model, right? So neural networks, it's a bunch of weights typically. These large LLM these days have like 80 billion weights plus, right? But you could have another neural network with 50 weights, a small little one. Or a linear model of 10 variables, of 10 parameters would have 11 variables, right? The 10 inputs plus the offset. So that is data too. That's the point. The next thing, when you predict, the prediction itself is data, right? If you're predicting it'll go up, well, it's up versus down. That's just one bit of data, up versus down, but it's still data, and that's very useful data because you can use that up versus down prediction, or maybe a confidence too, but at least an up versus down prediction, to take action. Buy a stock or buy Bitcoin and then sell it. Or sell it and then reverse your trade 5 minutes later. And it's for other domains too, right? If you're you could be predicting, does this I just gathered data and I have a model that predicts cancer given some screening, maybe an ultrasound or something, right? And then you take the ultrasound data and you put it into this model and it spits out the probability of that person having a particular type of cancer, right? And then if it's like, okay, say 80% of cancer of, say, lung cancer, then probably some action will be taken, right? The doctor would order whatever is needed for handling lung cancer. et cetera, maybe surgery, maybe otherwise, right? And then in that case, you as the AI modeling data person or the company selling this this cancer screening, you're making money by selling that cancer screening model to the hospitals, maybe via an app for the doctors or otherwise, right? So there's lots of different places that this can get monetized, but at the heart, it's data flowing, the training data, the building the model, the predicting data, and then from that, the action getting taken. Okay. And by the way, when I say make money, I might also mean save money or just do your job, like in the case of a doctor, right? But if a doctor continually does his job badly because he predicts cancer badly, et cetera, then he will get fired, the hospital will get fired, whatever, right? Okay. Um, this loop, this data value creation loop, has a lot of really great use cases. So a baseline one is simply using it to analyze verticals. So if you're a new startup and you're saying, okay, what vertical might be interesting for me, right? Do I want to go for DeFi? Do I want to go for automotive? Do I want to go for music, right? So, and we've, in our own analysis, we sat down and analyzed a lot of verticals, and then we reverse engineered and said, what criteria matter the most? And there's really two that stood out. One of them is, well, actually, there's a baseline, which is, can you go through the loop at all, right? If you're doing a startup and you can't envision how you can even make money from your AI model or the data that you're doing, then you need to go back to the drawing board and aim for something else or something. So let's use as a baseline, you've got to get through the loop, of course, right? Once you can get through the loop, making money with your idea, then the question is, how quickly can the users go through this loop? Is it 1 hour, 1 month, 5 years, right? So if you're doing a cancer screening tool, it might take you 3 years to get FDA approval if it needs FDA approval, right? And that's pretty hard for a startup. So if you're a single person show, or maybe you can do this on the side for 5 years, but of course getting approval takes a lot of money. If you're a startup with 30 people and burning, I don't know, say $5 million, $10 million a year, do you have enough runway to last those 3, 4, 5 years while you get approval, right? Whereas if you're doing something that's faster in say DeFi or decentralized science, that might be faster depending, then you can go through the loop faster, right? And then the next one is simply what's the TAM, which is what's the dollar opportunity for the users going through the loop, and how much can Ocean help? In that sense, how much can decentralized data sharing technology help, right? Is it a $1 million TAM, total addressable market, 100 million and 10 billion? And how much can it help? Another way of thinking about this is, what's your competitive advantage? Ocean's relatively small right now compared to all the big centralized stuff. Most decentralized stuff is small compared to decentralized. So can some of the USPs of decentralized help with what you're doing, right? And have a competitive advantage. And then those two things together, what's the dollar opportunity? How much can you help? What's your USP? What's competitive advantage? So these two things together, in short, you probably don't want to don't go for things where it takes 5 years to go through the loop once, unless you've got really deep pockets and a lot of patience. And you probably don't want to go after a market that's only $1 million TAM, ever, $1 million revenue a year. If your burn rate is 10 million a year, then you're dead in the water, right? So you need to really think about that. And then you can actually use this to analyze verticals. So this is an analysis we did internally in Ocean. And this is just our own opinions as of about, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something. And so, for example, in the top left, you've got medical enterprise, right? There's very good money in medical. That's why it's, higher up. But it's to the far left because it's very slow, right? FDA approval, all that, right? Going a bit to the right, things like automotive enterprise, there's pretty good money there, including on the data side, but it takes a long time, right? Years of commitment, right? And then, medical insurance, it's also in there. Medical insurance in general is a good one for data because in the world of data, there's data scientists that there's so many data scientists analyzing, analyzing on behalf of insurance companies that they have their own name. They're called actuaries, right? And that label has been around for 100 years. So they predate data scientists. And then, everyone else that's, statisticians or data scientists too, of course. So that's the top left, right? That's good for money, but bad for speed. Bottom right is good for speed, but probably not as good for money, right? So things like, say, PFP NFTs, right? There's actually pretty good money in that, but Ocean, it doesn't really move the needle much to help you on that, right? Things like comments and ratings. You can iterate very quickly on that. But it's really hard to make money as comments and ratings tool because it's really an add-in feature for other stuff, right? And things like, calendar apps or contacts apps, you could build these things pretty quickly with Web3. And the thing is, it's really hard to make money from that, right? Because you're competing with free apps from Google, like Google Calendar, right? So that's what's going on in the stuff here on the right. You can iterate quickly, and even build it for yourself, eat your own dog food, all that, which is a great idea. But it's really hard to make money potentially, right? If you find a way to make money and have a competitive advantage, great. Then it shifts to the top right. On the bottom left is kind of like a really tough zone, right? It's where money is hard and it's slowish. So far bottom left is music NFTs. I love music. I love NFTs. It's really, really hard to make money in decentralized music. And the main reason is people really love their back catalog of music, right? People love, their ABBA from the 70s and their Michael Jackson and AC/DC from the 80s and so on and so forth, right? And who controls that back catalog? Universal Music has more than 50% of it, right? And then there's a couple other big music players that hold the rest, right? So that's the vast majority of the back catalog is controlled by basically this oligopoly of 2, 3, 4 big players, depending how you measure it. And they have no interest in unlocking that IP to any would-be competitors, right? Even when Spotify came along, Spotify at first didn't make great deals on this. And then they got eaten alive, essentially, by the big guys. And now it's largely owned by Universal and Co. So that's the challenge with, and that actually affects both speed and money, right? So in the end, Spotify, it's really hard to, for it to really make money, except for Universal. And it's super slow, right? Because you've got to sign. And there's other stuff too, like agricultural data. It's kind of similar to music, but in this case, it's controlled by John Deere. And other stuff too. So overall, that's the bottom left. That's the worst of both worlds, but best of both worlds is the top right, right? This is where you can loop through the data value creation loop quickly. That's the XY axis. Sorry, the X axis, and then larger dollar opportunity. That's the Y axis. And this is where LLMs definitely fit because if you build an LLM or a tool using it, there's a lot of consumer demand for this, right? So we're seeing a lot of startups pop well because they're coming up with new apps. There's almost certainly thousands of AI startups now wrapping LLMs. Or if you can, figure out a way to create a state-of-the-art LLM for a particular application or even a general one, and it doesn't break the bank, or you figure out a way for it to pay for it, great, right? OpenAI obviously had a lot of funding, but also they're making a ton of money now too. And then also even, potentially better than that is DeFi because it's very fast, right? You're one transaction away from making money if you do it well. As well as, there's a lot of dollars there, right? Tens of billions, maybe even hundreds of billions now, total value locked. And a lot of big verticals there, right? Stable coins and loans and swaps and so on, right? So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there. And there's other things too, things like decentralized social and so on, right? But this is an analysis we had, and the key thing is this is the tool that really helped us to analyze that. And then I'll show later how in the top right, we use this as the filter to go for something in the top right. So then going back to this question, right? At the very top level, we asked, how can teams make money and thrive in an open data economy, right? Well, first of all, ensure that they can make money. How? Well, create value from data, make money from that value created, and then reinvest, loop, right? And so what do we do as tactics within Ocean Protocol for this? Well, people building in our ecosystem, we do encourage them to close that data value creation loop, and then also do well in these two dimensions: maximum dollars opportunity and maximum speed, right? And then we actually follow our own advice for internal projects too, and I will give an example later in this talk. Okay. Now I talked about this loop. Now, interestingly, it can actually lead to a data supply chain. So let's unpack this. First of all, let's talk about supply chains, right? An example, coffee. I love coffee. I drink a lot of it. I love being wired. I love coding, all that, right? So a very, very simplistic version of this is there's farmers that grow coffee beans, right, in the Costa Ricas of the world. And in fact, I've been at those farms in Costa Rica. And then they distribute these beans, from Costa Rica they go through 3, 4, 5 different distributors until they find their way to a roaster, right? Sometimes with ships in between, sometimes with trains in between, semis, whatever, right? And those distributors also package them into smaller and smaller forms. But then the coffee roaster, roasts the coffee, and then and that might be some local mom and pop shop for hipsters, or it might be the Starbucks of the world might do more centralized roasting and then ship the roasted coffee to their retail outlets. And finally, there's the retail outlets, right, where they take that roasted coffee and sell it. And some retail outlets are their own roastery as well, and that makes really great coffee for anyone who loves coffee. That's obvious, but it's 4 steps here. Okay, so that's the coffee supply chain in a very simplified way. Okay. What if we take this data value creation loop and enroll it, right? If we enroll it, we get a data supply chain, right? And this, might feel obvious too if you're an AI person for sure, right? You get training data, you build a model, you predict, and then take action, make money. This final step isn't usually talked about, but it's really important. It's part of the supply chain, right? If you ignore that, then you've got 3/4 of a data supply chain, but you don't have something where people can make money. You don't have something where the loop can be closed. So it's really important to have that final step. So we've got this data supply chain, right? And of course, at each step along the way, we've got data just like before, right? There's data at each step of the supply chain. It's more than just training data, like I've emphasized before. What is it? Well, just like before, the raw training data, the model parameters, and the predictions. And of course, in the very final step, this is actually not data per se. It's taking whatever action from that final set of data, the predictions, and making money, right? And by the way, when I talk about predictions, another good example is, these LLMs. So they're running a prediction. You put in a sentence, and it basically tries to predict the next, 10 or 50 tokens, given that as an input set of tokens, right? Which is basically predict a sentence given the input sentence, right? Predict an output sentence given the input. And they're one-off inputs as opposed to, say, time series, which are sort of, steadily every 5 minutes, whatever, but they are obviously very valuable now. So this is the data supply chain. Predictions basically can be one-offs or they can be time series. Okay, but let's drill more into this. And how are we going to do it? Well, we're first of all going to drill back into coffee. Once again, I love coffee. I love thinking about it. So we saw this already, the coffee supply chain, grow the beans, distribute them, roast them, and then sell them in Starbucks or hipster cafe. Let's elaborate on this. What is the flow of money? So the money doesn't originate in the left side with, the farmers in Costa Rica. No, it originates when that consumer walks into the Starbucks and opens their wallet and, gives their $4 for their iced coffee, right? So the money is arriving at that last mile at the retail coffee outlet, right? And it finds its way bit by bit from that retail coffee, then goes back to the roasters. The money from the retail is used to pay the roasters and maybe paid in advance, whatever, cash flow management, et cetera. But ultimately, this is the flow of the money. So the roasters get their portion, and then the roasters, they pay their suppliers, which is the distributors, and the distributors pay their suppliers, which is the actual growers, right? The farmers in Costa Rica. So basically the money comes into the Starbucks, and eventually some of it makes its way to the Costa Rica farmers with several middlemen, right? Okay. Whoops, wrong direction. Okay, here's a key thing. If there's no Starbucks, then there's no money to the Costa Rica farmers, right? That's the baseline. So if there's no last mile buyers in general, no one else gets paid either, right? So it's kind of a prerequisite to have that last mile, right? And I was emphasizing this before too. You can't truly have a data supply chain unless you've got the make money part. Let's ask, who is actually making the serious money in the coffee supply chain? Well, remember at the top, at the far right, I mentioned it's $4 for 1 cup of coffee. This is a large iced coffee at Starbucks. And so they're making money, and then it filters down, a large money there, and then some of it makes its way to the roasters, then to the distributors, and then to the coffee growers on the far left. How much do they make? So I just Googled before this talk. 1 kilogram of coffee in Costa Rica, if you buy it from a Costa Rica farmer, it's $23. and actually can be even cheaper, but that's an amount. And that gets you 140 cups. So it's 140 cups worth of coffee for 1 kilogram. And that basket there is probably a couple kilograms of coffee, to give you a feel, right? It amounts to 16 cents for 1 cup of coffee. Now, so Starbucks on the right is charging $4 for 1 cup. On the left, the farmers are charging essentially 16 cups for 1 cup, 16 cents for 1 cup of coffee. That's a 25x difference, right? So that's why, who makes the serious money? The coffee retailers, the Starbucks, and the mom and pop shops that, have their books in order, right? And the roasters make pretty good money. The distributors make a little less money, but if they're efficient, they can do well. And, the farmers themselves, growing the beans, it's tough, right? And by the way, while I, don't have deep experience in farming coffee, I did grow up in a farm in Canada, and we saw the same thing, right? We would sell a bushel of wheat, which is, let's see, 5 gallons. So it's, say, 25 liters worth of wheat. That's maybe, I don't know, but we would sell it for $1.50, right? So a giant pail, a 5-gallon pail of wheat, we would sell for $1.50. And that would make on the order of, I don't know, probably 50 loaves of bread. But 1 loaf of bread would cost $1.50, right? So it's like a 50x, 25x, 50x, just like here, right? So that raw product has a lot of middleman by the time it gets to the retail, right? It doesn't matter whether it's wheat, like my example, or coffee, like the example here. Okay, well, you know what? We've talked about coffee, supply chain, and who makes the money, et cetera. Let's map this over to data. So I've showed this before, the data supply chain, from getting the training data, building the model, predicting, and finally taking action, making the money. Good. Well, now let's map over the coffee stuff. On the far right, you've got to have money coming in from the last mile, right? And then that money filters down, dispersing backwards to the people making predictions, to the people building the model, to the people with the training data, right? To the original suppliers, in an ideal world. Often though, I'll get into this, but the training data itself is often, free. So people don't get paid there often, right? Okay, but this is the flow of money, right? So the key point is the dollar is coming from this last mile, taking action from the predictions. Okay, and then another baseline then, if you don't have last mile buyers for your predictions, then there's no money to the rest of the chain. Simple as that, right? You could be an AI startup making the fanciest LLM in the world, and if you have no one, paying for the predictions of your LLM, if you haven't thought that through, then you're going to have trouble, right? Maybe you get yourself acqui-hired by Facebook or something. Okay, so what does this look like? And I hinted at this already. The money starts at the far right and then filters down downwards to earlier in the supply chain, the predictors, the model builders, the training data people. Okay. And then this is who would make the serious money? Well, far right, right? It's just like, and this is a running hypothesis, but I believe it to be true. The best money is the people who are taking these predictions and taking action from them, right? And that's not a data thing per se. They might be using data, but it's not the rest of the data supply chain per se. And then for the data part, the best for data is people making the predictions, right? So if you're someone who's really good at making predictions, or really wanted to be part of this data supply chain at the sort of data level, then your best bet is for predictions, right? And that leads to something I tweeted about a year ago. I had arrived at this even earlier, but I decided I would just tweet it out for posterity. The most valuable data is predictions, accurate predictions. And that was 6 months before we released our predictor product, although obviously we were working on it then, and I'll get into that later. But this is my sort of glib summary of what I'm saying here. The most valuable data is predictions. Okay, so I've laid out a bunch of theory. This is kind of the summary of the theory, and before too, right? I've talked about the data value creation loop, about a prerequisite of having to go through it. I've talked about dimensions that really matter, going through it quickly, making money. I've talked about how you can unroll the loop to get a data value supply chain or a data supply chain. And then I've talked about within that supply chain, who makes the real money. And it's the people taking action from the predictions. And of the data people, it's the people making the predictions, right? So if you want to focus on making money from a data perspective, focus on predictions. Okay. Now I'm going to show where we took that theory and we put our money where our mouth is. Okay, so this didn't show up. That's too bad, but I actually do want to show that. So just give me 1 second, and I will pop that in again. Good, because this is a good one. There we go. Okay. It's a bit messy, but okay, good. So overall, I tweeted this actually a couple months after we launched Predictor, but I realized it's a pretty good short summary of token engineering with a nice focus on product as well and go to market. Because when you are engineering something, it's not just the early design stages, it's not just the shipping the product, but it's also taking it to market. And it's maintenance and upgrading the product and so on. And often the product itself and its go-to-market strategy are intimately tied to each other, right? So when you're thinking about you're doing your token engineering and all that, it's really important to think about how are you going to bring this to market. So, and that's what this process here describes. So I'll talk to it. So token engineering in a nutshell. First, set up the rules of the game. Typically smart contracts, right? It could be an L1 or L0 or L2 or whatever too. And the most compelling games, people make money or save money. And that goes to my point before. So set up the rules of the game. Step 2, make the game easy to play. Have apps, what's your, go-to-market channel here, right? Have apps for it, or have forkable code, have good docs, et cetera, right? Then kickstart the network, right, with token incentives. So often, we are on blockchain land. Often you do need, you have the risk of an empty network problem, right? You've got maybe a two-sided platform where you've got people maybe supplying predictions and other people wanting to buy their predictions. Well, you've got a chicken and egg problem. How do you kickstart that, right? And so token incentives are a wonderful tool for that. So it's a sort of a subset of the overall token engineering problem. And then finally, optimize. And so this is 4 steps. And then in the next several slides here, what I'm going to do is walk through these, exactly what we did here with us, putting our money where our mouth is for the Ocean Predictor product. Okay. So first of all, we said, what data type do we want? Is it going to be around raw training data or model parameters or predictions? And of course, given the theory I showed you, you're all saying, of course, Trent, predictions. And that's exactly it. So we decided to focus on predictions, but we can't ignore the take action, make money part too. So we have to account for that and make sure that we have closed that loop, right? So that the people making predictions can make money, good money, but then also the people that are using those predictions can make serious money too. Okay, so data type is predictions. Which vertical? DeFi, right? Because, well, it's at the very top right. And of course, we ourselves are in blockchain and very adjacent to DeFi. We have a lot of experience ourselves in DeFi, in Ocean, as users as well as advisors, et cetera, right? So, and of course, we, with Ocean itself, we have tokenized data. We use tools of DeFi like Balancer within Ocean, wallets, all this sort of thing. So we really know, the tools of DeFi intimately from our previous work. And in this case, we also, we had different ideas for things there, but a couple that popped out was trading system and prediction system, right? And you'll see that what we've built with Predictor is mostly prediction system, but it's got some trading elements too. Okay, so we chose a vertical, DeFi. And then we, first of all, ensured that the data value creation loop is closed, right? How? Well, on the data side, which is the predictions, we're going to have predictors selling predictions. And I'll show later how these predictors are also building the model and getting their training data. So they're handling all three. And then for the non-data side, it's traders using the predictions as alpha. So they're going to take predictions and use that to decide how to trade. And then, of course, the traders, you want them to be buying data, right? And in this case, they're buying data to the predictors, the predictions, right? So the predictors are lumping this all together. So we've got traders, we've got predictors. It's a two-sided platform. And overall, this diagram, I just wanted to emphasize that we want to make sure that this data value creation loop is closed. And critically, take action, make money, right? In this case, it's traders. Okay. So the product is, we've got fancy marketing. This is our style here. This is Ocean Predictor. The main USP is accountable, accurate prediction feeds. So most traders, or a lot of traders, even in DeFi land, don't care whether your thing is decentralized. They don't care whether your contracts are unstoppable, all that. What they care about is making money, right? And for that, they need the prediction feeds to be accurate, right? And how do you get prediction feeds to be accurate? Well, a really good heuristic is get the predictors, the people making predictions, get them to put their money where their mouth is, right? So if they can put their money where their mouth is, i.e. staking on their predictions, then it will lead to more accurate predictions. And I'll talk to that more later too. So at the end of the day, the traders buying these feeds want accurate feeds. And then within this, with accurate feeds, we get demand by traders for alpha. And a key feature here is that the feeds themselves are crowdsourced. I'll get into that too. Okay. So the summary here is, how do people make money? Well, the predictors run a prediction bot. These predictions are every 5 minutes. So will Bitcoin, USDT on Binance go up or down 5 minutes from now? Same thing for ETH and the other top 10 tokens by market cap. So the people running prediction bots do that, where the prediction bot submits that prediction on chain every 5 minutes to a privacy preserving chain. We use Oasis Sapphire because it's actually the only privacy preserving EVM in production. And Oasis has been an awesome collaborator. And then, so that's making money by predicting or by trading. And that one's pretty obvious, right? If you have accurate predictions that the price is going to go up, then on average, and you buy, and the slippage and fees don't kill you, then you can make money. Buy and 5 minutes later sell, or sell and 5 minutes later buy. Okay. Or of course, instead of sell, you could short, or you can have fancier trading strategies too with futures and other stuff. Okay. So people can make money by predicting and trading. And because this is every 5 minutes, and you're typically involving ML, then it would be very tedious or near impossible to really use to do this manually, right? So instead, you want to have it where people can run bots easily. Okay. So overall, this is the flow of what's going on. On the far left, we've got predictors where they predict and they stake on those predictions. Those predictions, maybe, say for the Bitcoin USDT feed, maybe there's, say, 5 people who stake up. Maybe they stake 100 Ocean each. And then there's one person who stakes down, maybe 100 Ocean. So you've got 500 Ocean predicting up, 100 Ocean predicting down. So overall, you've got 600 Ocean. So 5/6 of that is up. So it's basically, overall, those predictors are predicting up. And people can see that, right? The amount of stake up versus down. Now, of course, if you have super high conviction that's going to go up, instead of staking 100 Ocean, you could stake 1,000 Ocean, right? And these days, Ocean's about $1. One Ocean is about $1. So it's $100, $1,000, etc. Okay. So, and that's critical, right? You stake on your predictions on the far left. And then this gets submitted to the chain, Oasis Sapphire, privacy preserving, so that, people can't just see, the chain transparently. Instead, if you're a trader, you need to buy this to get access. And then if you buy this, then you can see the aggregated value, the sum of predictions up and down, and the stakes, and then you act accordingly, right? And that's these the middle text on the far right. So the trader buys the feed, and then they act accordingly based up and down, right? It can be simple and naive, if predict up, buy, if predict down, sell, or it can be much more sophisticated. And that's the flow of this, very simple conceptually, right? Of course, we've done way more detailed flows. Here's an example of what's exactly going on, et cetera, et cetera. And, you can dive deeper yet, but I won't bore you with that here. Let's connect the dots here of the previous flow with the data supply chain. So in the middle, we've got the data supply chain, right? From the left of getting training data to building model to predict. This is all handled by the predictors, right? And then on the right, the take action, make money. This is the traders. And to be precise, it's the trader bots run by the traders, right? In both cases. So the predictors, they are selling their predictions to the traders in this aggregated fashion, right? And I should mention, so, a detail on what does this look like. So let's say that I had this example before where there was 5 people who predicted up, and they staked 100 Ocean, and 1 person who predicted down staked 100 Ocean. Let's say that it turned out 5 minutes later that everything went up. And what happens then? The person who predicted down gets their stake fully slashed. They lose 100 Ocean. The 5 people who predicted up, they get pro rata, the stake of the person's slashed Ocean. So they get 20 Ocean each from that. And they get the revenue from the traders buying the feed. So if there's, say, say $100 or say $500 worth of revenue, they each get $100, right? And when the traders buy the feeds, they buy for a 24-hour subscription. And these days, it's simple pricing. It's just $1 for a 24-hour subscription for one feed. So it's actually very cheap. It's like totally underpriced. But we wanted to start with that to keep it simple as we're growing. But we'll make it more dynamic pricing at some point. Okay. So this is the summary in this data value supply chain. What are the predictors handling? The first three steps. Then they're selling the predictions, directly on chain, right? Essentially. And then the traders are buying these and taking action however they like. In both cases, yeah, that's how it is. If you go to predictor.ai, this is what you see. And at first glance, you see there's a list of the top 10 tokens. This is the ones it's predicting: Bitcoin USDT on Binance, ETH, Cardano, Binance token itself, Solana, etc. And then going to the right, you'll see a bunch of different things. And I'm going to zoom in on that for Bitcoin now to give you a feel. So this is what it looks like. We'll zoom in. So in this case, we see that the price of Bitcoin at 5:45 p.m. had been $59,000. So this was, I think, a couple of months ago, the screenshot, whatever it was. Okay. And it had increased from the 5 minutes before that. So at 5:40 p.m., the price was lower than $59,328. Okay. 5 minutes later, but it's still in the past, the price of Bitcoin had gone down to $59,222. And then 5 minutes after that, the price went down again. Sorry, that's not 5 minutes after. Sorry, this is 35 seconds after. So this is the live value. I'm getting the feed from Binance every few seconds. And the price so far has gone down. It's went from 59,222 to 59,192. So we're $30 lower yet. And that's in just the 35 seconds. And that clock will tick away 35, 36, 37, all the way up to 1755. And right now, we see that there are predictions for 1755, but we don't have a final price. We see a prediction of going up, and it's up-down predictions, right? And we see that there's overall, there's 277 oceans staked up and 272 oceans staked down. So the predictors here are almost, neck and neck for up versus down, right? And it's often like that. And a lot of predictors actually, they stake both up and down, right? Sort of two-sided. And that's actually, if you look at the math, it actually helps reduce, well, it reduces the variance, which reduces the risk of losing money, actually, right? Overall, it helps your profitability. So that's what's happening here. And then when it actually turns into 1755, the actual value would pop over here and everything slides to the left, right? And then the 1 week accuracy of this feed as of 2 months ago was 52%, right? For ETH USDT, notice that you can't see the prediction in the future because you have to buy it. So we actually make the Bitcoin feed free so that people can visualize and see what's going on to get a feel. It's free in the web app, right? It's not free for the robots. It's just free in the web app. And then, but for the other 9 tokens, you have to pay for it, right? And in this case, it's, on average in the previous week, it's 51% accurate. And once again, remember, if you're more than 50% accurate and there's 0 fees and 0 slippage, you make money, even if you're 50.001% accurate, right? But then you might need to be 52% or 51% or 54% accurate to account for slippage and fees. Okay, so that's predictor. This is what it looks like if you go here. And then, but of course, this is just to help you build your mental model. If you actually want to run bots, predictor bots or otherwise, you click on the top right, this button, Run Bots, and it takes you to these screens to run a predictor bot and to run a trader bot. And basically, this is GitHub, and it walks you through how to you do a git clone of the repo, and then within 5 minutes you're running a simulation, such as the plots in the bottom right here, and it's all command line interface, blah blah blah. And you can also run your own trader bot, right? So you just go through the steps, and if you already have the tokens, etc., you can get through this whole end-to-end thing in about 30 minutes. If you want to take your time, it'll take you half a day or a day, but it's very easy to go through, right?
Trent,
Yeah.
just for your information, we have only a couple of minutes left. I wonder if we have some space for questions.
Yes, I have two slides left, so or 3. So I'll be quick. Okay, great. So I mentioned we need to solve the empty network problem. So we have an incentive program, predictor data farming. And that basically is a baseline of 37,500 ocean worth of sales each week. And that goes to the, well, it's as if there's a bunch of traders buying already. Okay. And then that, of course, goes to the predictors. How's it going? We launched 6 months ago. We already have $433 million in monthly staking volume. So this thing blew up. We're very happy about that. It was actually a lot higher than we thought, but of course, it's pretty cool numbers. This is the bots, every 5 minutes, up, down, et cetera, right? There's about 100 users worth of bots running. And there are 385,000 monthly transactions, almost 500,000 monthly transactions. And what's critical is the game is going well enough that the accuracy is steadily going up. So there's an arms race among people running predictions to do better and better. And here's a plot showing that. So basically going from left to right, these accuracies are trending upwards for the 5-minute feeds on the top and for the 1 hour feeds on the bottom, from 50.5% to 51 to 52 to 53%. And then for conclusion, yeah, just to wrap up, I talked about the data value creation loop, how it's a really great filter. Then if you unroll it, you get the data supply chain, top right. And then a key thing there is from this, the theory, the most valuable data is predictions, accurate predictions. And then we took all this theory and we put our money where our mouth is within Ocean, and we rolled out Ocean Predictor, which has excellent traction and getting better all the time. So yeah, I'll open the floor to questions. Thank you very much, everyone.
Cool, thanks a lot, Trent. Are there any questions? I've seen some in the chat, or just feel free to switch on your mic. And by the way, just for people watching us on Twitter, this is the study season at TE Academy live track program with Trent McConaghy. We are discussing the data value creation loop. Okay. Any questions? Okay, Alex Soto, switch on your mic, please.
Yes, thank you. I have a general question, maybe a little bit outside of predictions and DeFi, but going back to the value chain and what you were talking about the last mile. So I think in general terms, what I take from this is that usually the last mile, which is also like customer facing, is usually the last piece. But if it's well done, it's actually taking most of the percentage of income. And sometimes I feel like Web3 in general is missing that last mile piece to get to the broader population. So my question is, how can we change the tokenomics in order to prevent that some player is going to end up in this winner takes it all dynamic, where like there is a platform or someone who is taking advantage of all that work done and just making this like beautiful user-friendly interface. And instead of that, how can we make like a more collective last mile platform or last mile point that can be more just in how the distribution of value was created in the first place?
Yeah. My recommendation is do the last mile as well yourself, right? And it actually really informs the rest. So right when we started doing Predictor, the very first thing we did was we drew out a prototype for this. And everything else stemmed from this. This is the last mile, but it's actually the last mile for people to build their mental model. The actual last mile is this, right? Because our users are data scientists who know Web3 enough to go through this, right? And so on. So we made sure that people could have easy onboarding from here. But the point is, we, in terms of, I'll just go to here, let's see here. Yeah, here we made a point of making sure that all these steps are covered. And specifically, I guess probably a good one is this. We didn't just end at the data predictions. We also included the last mile for the traders and actually the last mile for predictors too, right? But if you just say, hey, come and adopt my smart contract, that's not enough, right? There's too much friction. And this is actually what we encountered with earlier Ocean tools too, right? Ocean Market. We had a platform for people to publish data, for people to consume data. But there was this perennial problem of when people publish data, who's going to actually come and buy it or vice versa, right? So it was chicken and egg. And we decided, you know what, let's do something where we're really thinking about this this data value creation loop end to end for a very specific application, and then close the loop on that. And so right now, and we've designed things in a way where the traders can make money, right? The predictors can make money, and then right now, this is just handled implicitly by the predictors. But what we see is that once the traders are making good money, then that filters down to the predictors, right? And then there's opportunities to flesh out decentralized versions of this stuff, because right now this is happening in a centralized way. But it doesn't really make sense to do decentralized versions of this well for this use case, because people could run on, you know, they can do this running on Azure or whatever themselves or locally. But it will make sense at some point down the line in order to help catalyze, you know, getting better data or training models more cheaply, et cetera, right? And yeah, that's the summary. But and I'd also say, like, don't be scared of the last mile making money. Help them make money. Help them make tons of money. And then just help make sure that there's affordances for competition to come in to compete against them, right? So we're going to have lots of traders coming in buying this, and if some are making money and they start paying, you know, let's say it's an English channel auction to buy a feed, right? And it's only maybe it's unique. Only one person can buy a given feed any given 24 hours. Well, the people making the most money are going to spend the money there, but other people could come along and pay more, and then they make money, and then there can be competition there, right? So in general, we really like to design things for, you know, to make the competition happen well. And you don't have to, you know, paint the globe to start with, right? You know, job number one is make sure that your last mile users are making money, and then let the rest, you know, sort itself out, and help to catalyze that with, you know, encouraging competition and so on.
Cool. Thanks so much. I think we could spend another hour discussing more super interesting elements of the data value creation loop. We can continue this conversation actually at EFCC in Brussels, where we'll have you again, Trent, discussing Predictor. So follow us on Talk Engineering on Twitter, or go to tokenengineering.net to find more information. Also join our study season for more advanced courses and learning programs around token engineering. And that said, thank you so much, Trent, for joining us today. Thank you so much for everyone for joining us on Zoom and on Twitter, and see you soon at TE Academy.
Thank you very much, and see you.
Right,
Bye.
see you in Brussels.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.